right, welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into a day that's already making history.
Oh, absolutely.
President Trump's first day back in the White House, round two.
Second term.
It's January 21st, 2025, and let me tell you, things are moving fast.
Very fast.
We've got CNN politics, live updates, practically melting down.
Yeah.
News articles can't seem to keep up, and even social media is buzzing.
Like crazy.
Like a hive mind that just found a new queen bee.
It is, think of it like a high-stakes chess game, right? Every move Trump makes,
Okay.
it sets off a chain reaction, domestically, globally.
Yeah.
And just from these early hours,
Right.
we're already seeing a pattern emerge.
Woo, a pattern. Okay, you've got my attention. Lay it on me.
Well, just look at the sheer volume of executive actions he's issued already.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Climate, immigration, tech. It's classic.
Right out of the gate.
Bold, sweeping moves
Dominate the board, right?
designed to.
Yeah, okay, but is this just about grabbing headlines? Or is there like a deeper strategy at play here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, let's take his $500 billion AI infrastructure investment, for example,
Okay.
in his first term.
Yeah,
The focus was largely on traditional infrastructure.
I remember that. Roads and bridges and all that.
Exactly, but this
Yeah.
this is a whole different game.
That's a huge chunk of change.
It is.
It signals a shift, doesn't it?
It does.
In priorities, but what's the end game here?
Right.
Is he genuinely trying to, position the U.S. as a global leader in AI?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this just a flashy play to appeal to a certain segment of voters?
Well, it could be both, couldn't it?
I guess so.
I mean, he's always been a master
True.
of playing to multiple audiences simultaneously.
Yeah, but this move, it feels different.
This move is particularly interesting because it has the potential to reshape entire industries,
Wow.
create new economic opportunities,
Okay.
and even shift the balance of power on the global stage.
So it's not just about the money.
It's not just about the money.
It's about the long term. That's
Implications,
true.
where that money's going.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm starting to see the chessboard here. What other moves is he making?
Well, let's talk about immigration.
Okay.
Declaring a national emergency at the southern border, I mean, this is huge.
Right.
This is a huge power play.
Yeah.
And with the administration saying this will lead to a widespread crackdown,
Okay.
even in places like churches and schools.
Wait, hold on. Arresting people in churches and schools?
Yeah.
That sounds incredibly controversial.
It is.
It is.
It is, and that's precisely the point.
Okay.
Trump thrives on controversy.
Yeah,
He knows it keeps him in the spotlight,
sure.
and it rallies his base.
But this move also sets up a major legal battle, right?
It does.
24 Democratic states and cities are already suing.
Already suing, calling these actions unconstitutional.
So he's sacrificing a pawn, maybe even a knight, to gain a strategic advantage on the board. Exactly. He's willing to endure short-term losses, legal challenges, even public backlash to advance his long-term agenda.
Speaking of things that are likely to cause backlash, let's talk about the January 6th pardons.
Oh, yeah.
Nearly 12,270 people convicted in the Capitol attack,
Wow.
including Oath Keepers leader Stuart Rhodes,
I remember that name.
have been pardoned, even those who committed violence against police officers.
It's a bold move,
It is.
and one that's drawing criticism from both sides of the aisle.
It is. Even some Republicans, like Congressman Don Bacon, are speaking out against it,
Really?
saying there needs to be accountability for those who attacked the Capitol and injured police officers.
Publicly disagreeing with Trump, that takes guts.
It does. I wonder if this signals a growing rift within the GOP.
It's possible.
Are we seeing cracks in their united front?
It's certainly something to watch. GOP congressional leaders are saying they're ready to move quickly on Trump's agenda, with House Majority Leader Steve Scalise highlighting taxes, energy, and border security as priorities.
But there's always a but with these things, right?
Right. There are already disagreements brewing within the GOP
On what?
on issues like the national debt and disaster aid.
Uh-huh.
And then there's Speaker Mike Johnson's insistence on a one-bill strategy to push through Trump's agenda.
Hold on. One bill strategy. You're assuming I'm like a political insider here.
Sorry.
And I haven't quite reached that level of expertise yet.
Basically, it means bundling all of Trump's priorities
Okay.
into a single massive bill, forcing Congress to vote on it as a whole rather than piecemeal.
Gotcha.
It's a risky move.
How so?
It could either streamline things
Okay.
or create major bottlenecks and infighting. even among Republicans.
So it's like playing poker. He's going all in,
Yeah.
hoping to intimidate his opponents and force their hand.
Exactly.
But if it backfires...
could leave him with nothing but a losing hand.
And remember, this is all happening against a backdrop of global uncertainty.
Oh, absolutely.
Trump's foreign policy moves are just as assertive, just as calculated.
They are.
Okay, fill me in. What's happening on the international front?
Right off the bat, he's threatened China with more tariffs,
On what?
aiming to pressure them on trade in fentanyl.
Okay.
And he's signaled openness to more sanctions on Russia if Putin doesn't come to the negotiating table.
Regarding?
The war in Ukraine.
So America First is still the name of the game.
It appears so.
Even after all these years.
It seems to be a core tenet of his foreign policy. He's using economic leverage as his primary weapon.
To do what?
Trying to, well, force other nations to bend to his will.
But is that strategy sustainable in the long run?
Well, that is the question, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like he's playing a dangerous game. Pushing allies and adversaries alike could backfire spectacularly.
It could. And remember, we're still in the very early stages of this chess match.
Oh, we are.
The board is set, players are in position,
Right.
but the real game has only just begun.
All right, so we've got domestic drama, international intrigue, and a president who seems determined to shake things up at every turn.
It's going to be a bumpy ride.
This is already shaping up to be a wild ride, but before we get too carried away with the big picture,
Right.
let's zoom in on some of the smaller details.
Okay.
Sometimes it's those seemingly insignificant moves that reveal the most about a player's strategy.
Absolutely. Like the fact that Trump just defended his decision to terminate John Bolton's security detail.
Interesting.
On the surface, it might seem like a minor administrative issue.
Yeah.
But knowing their history, it feels like a very deliberate power play.
Oh, yeah. Bolton's tell-all book was pretty brutal.
It was?
So this is a reminder that Trump never forgets a slight.
No, he doesn't.
And he's not afraid to use even the smallest pawn to send a message.
He's not.
Right. And then there's the disaster aid situation in California.
Oh, right.
Well, he said he's open to providing aid for the recent wildfires. He's planning to visit North Carolina and Nevada first. Wait, what? Why those states first?
Well, it's worth noting that both North Carolina and Nevada are considered key swing states in the upcoming elections.
Oh, okay.
So while he's offering aid to California,
Yeah.
he's also using this as an opportunity to visit those battleground states and potentially sway voters in his favor.
Ah, so it's not just about helping those in need. It's also about playing the political game.
Absolutely.
And speaking of politics, we can't forget about the Senate returning to full membership with the swearing in of two new senators.
Right.
Senator Moody from Florida and Senator Husted from Ohio.
Big changes.
It may seem like a minor detail,
Yeah.
but with such tight margins in Congress, every seat matters.
Every seat.
And the fact that both of these new senators are replacing Republicans
Replacing Republicans.
will likely have an impact on how legislation moves forward, particularly given the internal divisions we're already seeing within the GOP.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
So even seemingly small changes on the board can have a ripple effect
Absolutely.
on the entire game.
The whole game?
It's like we're watching a master chess player carefully plan his next move, anticipating his opponent's reactions, and strategically positioning his pieces for the long game.
Exactly. And remember, this is just day one.
Oh,
We've only seen the opening moves.
Oh, man, if day one is this intense, I can't wait to see what the rest of the term holds.
Me neither.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, I think we need to take a moment to digest all of this information.
Definitely.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
And I bet our listeners' heads are spinning just like mine.
I'm sure they are.
Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment to delve even deeper into the intricacies of this pivotal day and explore what it all means for the future of our nation.
Absolutely. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. I don't know about you, but my head is spinning after that first round of analysis.
A lot.
It's only day one.
I know.
And Trump is already
Making bold moves.
provoking reactions and setting the stage for what promises to be a very dramatic second term.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like he's trying to cram 4 years' worth of action into these first few hours.
I know, right? He's not wasting any time.
Exactly. And it's not just the sheer number of actions. It's the way he's going about it. It's all very strategic.
Yes.
Deliberate, like he's playing a very calculated game of chess, anticipating his opponent's every move.
He's always been a few steps ahead.
That's a great way to put it. He's certainly not afraid to sacrifice a pawn or two.
Or a night.
To gain a strategic advantage.
Right.
Take the immigration crackdown, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Declaring a national emergency at the southern border and authorizing arrests in sensitive locations like churches and schools.
Bold move.
Those are highly controversial moves, guaranteed to provoke a strong reaction.
Absolutely.
And yet they also play perfectly into his America First narrative.
Oh, for sure.
Reinforcing his image as the strongman leader who's not afraid to take drastic measures to protect the nation.
Exactly. And by doing so, he's also shifting the focus away from other issues that might be less favorable to him.
Like what?
Well, like the January 6th pardons, for instance.
Ah, so it's a distraction tactic as well.
Could be.
He's creating a new controversy to overshadow the previous one.
Yeah.
Keeping his opponents on the defensive and controlling the narrative.
It was a classic Trump maneuver.
Is it working?
It seems to be working. The media is already saturated with coverage of the immigration crackdown.
Okay.
While the criticism of the January 6th pardons has kind of faded into the background.
But is it sustainable? Can he keep creating these distractions indefinitely?
That's the question.
Won't people eventually start to see through the smoke and mirrors?
Perhaps. But for now, he's managing to keep everyone off balance.
How so?
Reacting to his moves rather than setting the agenda themselves.
It's almost like he's playing 3D chess while everyone else is stuck playing checkers.
Exactly.
But what about the GOP? Are they just going along with all of this?
That's a good question.
I mean, we saw some pushback on the January 6th pardons.
We did.
And there seems to be some disagreement.
There is.
On economic issues like the national debt and disaster aid.
Yeah, they're in a difficult position.
How so?
They want to support the president
and
advance their agenda. But they also have to be mindful of their own constituencies. And their own political futures.
So it's a balancing act for them.
It is.
Trying to stay aligned with Trump while also distancing themselves from his more controversial moves.
Exactly. And it's a balancing act that's likely to become increasingly difficult as Trump's second term progresses.
I bet, especially with his insistence on the one bill strategy.
Oh, yeah. That's a potential powder keg.
Right. That could really backfire on them.
Yeah.
If they bundle everything into one massive bill,
it does.
It becomes much harder to control the narrative.
For sure.
And manage the fallout. What if there's something in that bill that a particular congressman really needs to vote against?
Well,
they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
They would be. And that's where things could get really interesting.
How so?
You might see some unexpected alliances forming.
Okay.
With Republicans breaking ranks to vote against certain provisions.
Interesting.
Or even siding with Democrats on specific issues. It could lead to a much more fragmented and unpredictable political landscape.
Which, knowing Trump,
he loves that.
Is probably exactly what he wants.
Chaos creates opportunity, right?
Chaos creates opportunity, and he's a master at exploiting it.
It is.
But let's zoom out for a moment and talk about the global implications of all of this.
Okay.
His America First approach seems to be as strong as ever.
It does, doesn't it?
With tariffs on China and the potential for more sanctions on Russia.
Right.
Is he isolating America on the world stage?
It's a risky strategy, for sure.
In what way?
Alienating allies and escalating tensions with adversaries could have long-term consequences.
But again, it plays into his image as the tough-talking leader who's not afraid to stand up for American interests, even if it means going it alone.
Exactly, but at what cost?
Right, at what cost? Is there a point where that approach becomes counterproductive, where it actually harms America's standing in the world?
That's a question a lot of people are asking.
I bet.
And it's one we'll need to watch closely as his second term unfolds.
We will.
But remember, foreign policy is like a complex dance.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to step on someone's toes to get their attention.
Okay, that's a good point. It's not always about being nice and playing by the rules. Sometimes you have to be aggressive and disruptive to get what you want.
Exactly.
But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about something a little less, well, dramatic. The Senate has returned to full membership with the swearing in of 2 new senators.
Okay.
Senator Moody from Florida and Senator Husted from Ohio.
2 new players on the board.
Now, on the surface, this might seem like a routine procedural matter.
It might.
But remember, every seat in the Senate matters.
Especially now.
Especially in this current political climate where the margins are so razor thin.
Absolutely. And the fact that both of these new senators are replacing Republicans could have a subtle but significant impact.
On what?
On the dynamics within the GOP caucus.
For sure.
Senator Moody being a Trump appointee, is likely to be a staunch ally of the president.
Right.
But Senator Husted might be a bit more of a wild card.
How so?
He's coming in with his own set of experiences and relationships.
Okay.
And it remains to be seen how he'll navigate the complex political landscape of the Senate.
Right. It's like introducing a new element into a chemical reaction. You can't predict exactly how it will interact with the other elements.
Yeah.
But, it has the potential to change the outcome.
It really does. And that's what makes this first day so fascinating.
It is.
We're seeing all these different pieces coming into play, all these different forces interacting, colliding.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
It's like watching a master chess player carefully planning his next move. I know.
Anticipating his opponent's reactions and strategically positioning his pieces.
It's a beautiful game, isn't it?
It is for the long game.
It is.
And remember, this is just the opening move.
Oh, we're just getting started.
The game has only just begun.
The game has only just begun.
So as we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I'm left with a sense of both excitement and trepidation.
I feel that.
Excitement, because this second term promises to be anything but boring.
It does.
And trepidation, because the stakes are incredibly high.
Incredibly high.
We're at a crossroads in our nation's history.
I agree.
And the decisions that are made in the coming months and years will have a profound impact on the course of our nation.
They really will.
So as we move forward, it's crucial that we stay informed, engaged, and above all, vigilant.
We must be.
We need to hold our leaders accountable.
Yes.
Demand transparency.
Transparency.
And never stop asking questions.
Never.
Because ultimately, the future of our democracy depends on it.
And on that note, I want to thank you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive into President Trump's first day back in the White House.
We appreciate you listening.
We hope you found it informative, insightful, and maybe even a little bit entertaining.
I hope so, too.
Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment to explore some of the more nuanced aspects of Trump's first day. Those seemingly insignificant details that can often reveal hidden truths and offer surprising insights.
We'll be right back.
We're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive. It's time to put on our detective hats and look for clues in the finer points of Trump's first day back.
Think of it like we're examining the brush strokes of a masterpiece. Sometimes the most revealing details aren't the bold strokes, but the subtle nuances. The way the paint is layered. The choice of colors.
I like that analogy. So let's start with something that might seem insignificant at first glance. Trump's decision to terminate John Bolton's security detail.
Yeah, on the surface, it seems like kind of a petty move.
Right.
But knowing their history, Bolton's scathing tell-all book, the public feuding.
All of that.
It's hard not to see this as a calculated act of retribution.
So it's a reminder that Trump has a long memory.
He does.
And he's not afraid to use the levers of power.
Nope.
To punish those who cross him.
Even years later.
Even years later.
Absolutely.
And it reinforces this idea that loyalty is paramount in Trump's world. You're either with him or against him.
100%.
There's no middle ground.
There is no middle ground.
Which can create a very dangerous dynamic.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you surround yourself with only those who agree with you, you risk creating an echo chamber where bad decisions go unchallenged.
Exactly. It stifles dissent and creates a climate of fear.
Right.
Where people are afraid to speak truth to power.
Okay. Let's move on to another detail that caught my eye.
Okay.
The disaster aid situation in California. While Trump has expressed a willingness to help those affected by the wildfires, his decision to prioritize visits to North Carolina and Nevada first seems a little suspect.
It does raise questions about his motives, for sure.
Especially given that both North Carolina and Nevada are considered key battleground states in the upcoming elections.
Right, right.
So maybe it's not just about compassion.
Maybe not.
It's about using disaster relief as a political tool to shore up support in those crucial areas.
It wouldn't be the first time a president has used a crisis to their political advantage.
True, but it does highlight the inherent tension between governing and campaigning.
Yeah.
Between serving the needs of the nation and prioritizing electoral success.
It's a tough balance.
It is. It's a delicate balance and one that Trump seems to struggle with at times.
He's always been more focused on winning than on governing.
Right.
And that can have real-world consequences. Especially when it comes to issues like disaster relief, where people's lives are at stake.
Exactly. Okay, let's shift gears again and talk about the Senate returning to full membership with the swearing in of two new senators, Senator Moody from Florida and Senator Husted from Ohio. Now, on the surface, this might seem like a routine procedural matter.
Yeah, just business as usual.
But remember, Every seat in the Senate matters,
Every single one.
especially in this current political climate where the margins are so razor thin.
Absolutely. And the fact that both of these new senators are replacing Republicans could have a subtle
A subtle.
but significant impact
On.
on the dynamics within the GOP caucus.
For sure.
Senator Moody, being a Trump appointee, is likely to be a staunch ally of the president.
Right.
But Senator Husted
Yeah.
might be a bit more of a wild card.
You think so? How so?
He's coming in with his own set of experiences and relationships, and it remains to be seen how he'll navigate the complex political landscape of the Senate.
Right. It's like introducing a new element into a chemical reaction. You can't predict exactly how it will interact with the other elements, but, it has the potential to change the outcome.
Exactly, and that's what makes this whole first day so fascinating. We're seeing all these different pieces coming into play, all these different forces interacting and colliding.
It's like watching a master chess player.
It is, isn't it?
Carefully planning his next move, anticipating his opponent's reactions, and strategically positioning his pieces for the long game.
And remember, this is just the opening move. The game has only just begun.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I have to say I'm left with a sense of both excitement and trepidation.
Get that.
Excitement because this second term promises to be anything but boring.
Oh, it's going to be a wild ride.
And trepidation because the stakes are incredibly high.
They are.
We're at a crossroads in our nation's history, and the decisions that are made in the coming months and years will have a profound impact on the course of our nation.
I agree.
So as we move forward, it's crucial that we stay informed, engaged, and above all, vigilant.
Absolutely.
We need to hold our leaders accountable, demand transparency, and never stop asking questions.
Never stop questioning.
Because ultimately, the future of our democracy depends on it.
It really does.
And on that note, I want to thank you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive into President Trump's first day back in the White House.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it informative, insightful, and maybe even a little bit entertaining.
We hope you learned a thing or two.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.